This is Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast where we bring Jesus into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Hey guys, welcome to Sports Spectrum. I am Jason Romano, and today on the show we got a great conversation with Marcus Spears from ESPN. If you'd like to get in touch with us here at the show, you can email me directly, jason@sportspectrum.com, jason@sportspectrum.com. Any guest ideas you might have for future shows, any thoughts or comments on today's conversation with Marcus Spears, you can email me directly, jason@sportspectrum.com. And we are presented today by Water Mission, a nonprofit Christian engineering ministry that fights the global water crisis with safe water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions in developing countries and disaster areas. Check them out at watermission.org to learn more, watermission.org, and you can pray for them and help fight the global water crisis. We're also presented today by Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry in the world. And right now is a chance for you to team up with Compassion and pro athletes to help release children from poverty. You can learn more right now by going to their website, compassion.com/teamup, compassion.com/teamup, and help fill a stadium's worth of urgent support for children in crisis. Compassion.com/teamup. Marcus Spears is our guest today here on Sports Spectrum, the big swagoo, and this is one that I've been excited about for a while. Glad that we were able to finally get it done here in the summertime, and Marcus is just such a good dude. Of course, you know him from ESPN. He's an NFL analyst now. He's part of the relaunched NFL Live show that started August 17th, and he's doing great work there, and he's done great work there, both with the SEC Network and on ESPN on shows like Get Up, and here is Marcus now on NFL Live. But what many people don't realize is Marcus actually had a really good pro football career, played 8 seasons in the NFL. He played with Dallas from 2005 to 2012 with the Cowboys, and then his final year in 2013 with Baltimore. He was a first-round pick in the NFL Draft in 2005 by Dallas, 20th overall. And that's because he did some pretty cool things in college at LSU. He was a BCS National Champion under Nick Saban and a 2-time first-team All-SEC performer with LSU. And so he plays his football career, and then he retires, and then he goes into broadcasting. And we had a great conversation today. We really did. We talked a lot of football. We talked a lot of broadcasting. But even more, we talked about his journey of faith and how that shapes him. He called it his rock, his foundation on which he stands on. This was a really fun conversation with the big swagoo himself, Marcus Spears from ESPN, joining us here today on Sports Spectrum. Marcus, welcome to the show.
Jace, thank you for having me, man. I know it's been a long time coming, but finally glad we getting together.
Absolutely, and it seems like a really good time with the new role in the relaunched NFL Live on ESPN, and you've become this kind of, you're going to laugh at this, but I think it's true. You've become sort of this sports TV star, and I love watching. So I wonder, when did you see this? Did you envision this broadcasting career for yourself when you were playing in the league?
A bit. To be honest with you, Jay, I thought it was going to be radio.
Yeah.
I did a weekly radio show while I was playing with Dallas on our days off, and enjoyed it. Like, just gravitated to it, enjoyed the conversation, and it was in front of a live audience as well at Del Frisco's restaurant. Shout out Del Frisco, some good steaks there.
Yep.
But man, I got into it, and I really loved it. My major in college was communications. I wanted to be a movie star, to be honest with you. Like, I wanted to be on the big screen. That was one of my dreams. And this was by happenstance, but also, when you look back, man, you realize that your path was being forged by God a little bit before you even thought what you would be doing.
Yeah.
And for me starting at ESPN, it was legit. It was really my sister and my wife. My sister called me after I was released from the Ravens, and she said, "Hey, have you heard about the SEC network?" And I said, yes, because we, in the NFL, we argue all the time about conference, about schools and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
So I was privy to it. And then I was pressing my wife about, I want to do radio. I want a radio show. I want a national radio show. That was my dream. And she said, no, you need to be on TV. You need to do television. And so the culmination, as the story of my life, women knowing what I need to do more than I do, between my mom, my sister, and my wife, they pushed me in that direction, but always had a desire to do something in media.
When did you realize that the TV thing was working? I always tell people, when you're in your sweet spot, it's when you're passionate about something and when you realize you're pretty good at it too.
Mm-hmm.
And you were in a sweet spot, obviously, when you play in the NFL and you're at the highest level and playing for as long as you did, but there becomes a time when you find that sweet spot on television. For you, when was that?
To be honest with you, Jay, I think it was when we did a show on SEC Network called Thinking Out Loud. And myself, Greg McElroy, and Alyssa Lang was prior to this year. But mostly me and Greg McElroy did that show. And I got a chance to see the production part of a show when your name is actually on it, and you kind of understand the inner workings. And I think that show introduced me to myself on TV because I had time to pat. It wasn't a pop in for 30 seconds or a minute and you're on a panel with everybody and then you got to move and get out of the way. You actually, between myself and Greg, we actually had to carry content. We had to fully embrace who we were, our personalities, and hope and pray that it worked and it resonated with fans and people that were watching. So that show was the beginning. And then obviously doing Get Up, my first constant mainstay on the big ESPN platform. And once I got into that arena and was, first of all, a shout out to a lot of those people, but Mike Greenberg for sure, producers behind the scenes that no one would know, allowed me to expand beyond football. And I think that's when the sweet spot happened for me. And I think that's when my passion went to another level, because I always wanted to be more than just a football guy. And I know that's crazy to say because my role is about to be NFL Live, but I always wanted to be looked at as a personality that can touch on topics outside, because I absorb sports. I watch a lot of sports. I watch baseball. I watch basketball. Basketball is actually my favorite sport.
You were a baller in high school, right?
Yeah, I hooped in high school, man. I loved it. Basketball was always my love because it was the hardest thing for me to learn how to do. Football was just, big, fast, natural. So when I was able to dive into them topics and talk to Jalen Rose and Jay Will and Jay Billis, to be on with Seth Greenberg and Tom Thibodeau, and to be able to sit amongst these basketball guys that I, grew up watching, and I actually have conversations with them. And then the football thing is, that's what I do. I have my 10,000 hours in football. I understand exactly what's going on, but also having the freedom to be fun and be myself. And I think that's the thing, Jason. Your sweet spot is when you are being your authentic self and people are responding and it's resonating. And that's my groove, man. So the day I stop being myself is the day I'll probably walk away from TV. Yeah.
The big swagoo, Marcus Spears, is joining us here on Sports Spectrum, NFL Live. He's part of this relaunched NFL Live group, which starts August 17th. I'm really excited to watch you on that show. Let me ask you about this nickname. Where does that stem from, the big swagoo? Because it's one of the great nicknames that I see on television. There's no doubt.
Actually, that goes to Joe Tessitore. Joe was the host of SEC Nation the first year, my first year doing TV. who probably till this day taught me more about television than anybody I've ever come in contact with. And Joe, he saw me. He started seeing that I wore a lot of like suits. I like suits. I like to dress nice and look nice. And Joe is with his Italian background. Was like, I think you the swagoo. You dripping swagoo. And actually, it was in a song by Kanye. But yeah. Joe started calling me the big swagoo, the big swagoo. And then I just noticed that everybody around television started calling me the big swagoo. Social media people say the big swagoo. And it just stuck. And now the execs call me swagoo at the ESPN. And, I love it. And it's crazy, man, because you just – but that's how you know, too, Jay, that you resonate. Like, and that's the thing I've always thought. When Joe gave me that name, that nickname, you know, it was some people, and I'm not gonna mention names, that was like, no, you don't need to have a nickname. People need to know you as Marcus Spears, and you know, and my personality, I nickname everybody. Like I do that, and I think that's another element to help people feel like you're approachable and they know you and they want to sit down and talk sports with you and just hang out, and you're not some big dude on TV that they got to be walking on eggshells. And that's always my approach. Like I want to be the man of the people. Like I don't need the you know, I know fame and all of that stuff comes with what I'm doing in my job, but ultimately I want people to feel comfortable enough to say, man, Mark is just a dude. Like I can sit down and talk to him, and when I'm on television, that's what being myself, hopefully that's what people getting from that.
Do you think more people know you today as a former Dallas Cowboys defensive lineman, which is where I knew you from as a Cowboys fan, or as an ESPN analyst?
I think it's the ESPN analyst now, man.
Is that weird?
It's so weird. It's so weird because when you play for the Dallas Cowboys, you expect that to be the attachment forever. And people still, you know, obviously people still know me from playing in Dallas. I was there 8 years, had a great career there, but it's the TV now. And I think so you know this as well through your history. People see your face now. Like, I mean, it's amazing. Everywhere you go, people know you now. And it's different in football. You know, you got helmet, and then you got the avid football fans that recognize you. And then you got people in passing like, ain't that, you know, when you play football, like, isn't that Marcus? Like, now it's like swagoo, you know, through the airport and in the store and stuff like that. So it's awesome, man, to see it. It's awesome to, you know, have people respond in the way they are.
That's pretty cool. Marcus Spears is joining us here on Sports Spectrum. You grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so you were destined to go to LSU. I have to imagine pretty much coming out of the womb, right?
Well, crazy story, Jay. No, because my mom and dad actually went to Southern University, one of the HBCUs in Baton Rouge, and I went to Southern University Lab School, which was on Southern's campus. Okay. And I really didn't know much about LSU. And I got to give Nick Saban a lot of credit, Jimbo Fisher a lot of credit, Scott Woodward, who is the AD there, a lot of credit. It was this whole new movement when I was being recruited through our high school to keep Louisiana players in state and going to LSU. And though it was a change happening in Louisiana with all kind of stuff, race relations, football, LSU was trying to become a prominent program, and happened that year. A lot of guys that were in my in 2001 class were ranked very highly in high school at their respective positions. So I ended up at LSU because of friendship and because the new coaching staff and leadership at LSU was making it a point to not only be more inclusive, but make sure there was the pride about Louisiana football on a national level. But growing up, man, it was Southern University, which I still love. The Human Jukebox was the band. I went to games with my grandmother and grandfather. I went to games when I was in high school with my friends. Like we were excited about Saturdays on the yard. on the bluff is what they called it at Mumford Stadium. So once I went to LSU, it was this whole mass movement of people from North Louisiana cheering for the LSU Tigers because one of their sons from Scotlandville, Louisiana, was going to LSU and play football. And you go now and you look at LSU, man, it has really it's bridged North and South Baton Rouge. When we were in college and we won the national championship at LSU, Southern won a Division II national championship as well. So it was this time in Louisiana where it just kind of everything worked together, and it's carrying on to this day.
And then you go from Nick Saban's to Bill Parcells. I mean, come on. I mean, that's from one to another in terms of legends here. What was that adjustment like coming to the NFL? You were a high pick, first round, 20th overall in 2005 by Dallas, and you come in and Parcells is there, and you go from Saban to Parcells.
Yeah, actually, man, thank God for Nick Saban. Because I would not have been ready for Bill Parcells if I hadn't had Nick Saban in college. And it was different. You know, both of these guys come from kind of the same coaching lineage. They understand how to go about putting together winners, but also developing players. Nick Saban developed me. I was a tight end coming into LSU. He switched me to defense because he knew that would be my path. Bill Parcells implemented the 3-4 in Dallas, which was a great fit for me. Different because I was used to being productive and having guarded sack numbers and all of that. But looking back, it was the perfect defense for me to play in. It was the perfect time for me to be in the NFL because the league was trending in that direction. But Saban prepared me, man. He ran, obviously it's been a lot of stories told, a lot of books written, a lot of pieces done. Nick Saban approached us like pros, and he expected us to carry ourselves that way. So it wasn't a big adjustment when I got to Dallas as far as operating on a pro level. The difference is Bill Parcells was mean, and I could not stand him my first year because there was an expectation for a lot of us that was drafted in that class to play immediately.
Yes.
But in that time, when you're 20 and 21 years old, you think that the dude that's pushing you harder than you ever been pushed is the worst person in the world. And trying to prepare us to be ready to not only play a season in the NFL, but develop into the men we needed to be in order to deal with the things that came with not only success, but failure, because it was a different level in Dallas. It was a different level of scrutiny, different level of visibility. Everything was different. So he was the perfect coach looking back. But the first year, I wanted to fight him every day. I wanted to fight Bill Parcells every single day. And it was a consistent grind. Our first training camp, 2-a-days for 20 straight days. Oh. It was Larry Allen on goal line live at the beginning of practice every day. Myself, Chris Canty, Jay Ratliff, DeMarcus Ware, Kevin Burnett, all rookies trying to figure out if we gonna even live to play the regular season because training camp is just devastating. It's Groundhog's Day and we dying, but it prepared us. And all of those names that I ripped off, everybody had long, successful careers in the NFL. And I attribute a lot of that to Bill Parcells and the way he killed us but groomed us to be pros and carry ourselves that way and have successful careers, man.
Well, that's one of the great drafts the Cowboys have ever had when you really look at who else was there, because you didn't even mention Marion Barber, and I think he was in that draft as well. So you're talking about 5 or 6 starters, which doesn't normally happen when you look at one specific draft, and that came with all of you guys. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was great, man. And I think obviously Jay Ratliff was drafted 7th round from Auburn, went on to be an all-pro Pro Bowler, played nose tackle at 265. Obviously, D. Ware, Hall of Famer. We know what D. Ware is, one of the best to ever do it at the position. Yeah. Myself, Chris Canty, had great careers as defensive ends in a 3-4. Marion the Barbarian. Dude, it was one of the great drafts, but I also say it was one of the great drafts with dudes with class and went about their jobs the right way. And I think that's what ultimately Bill was trying to get. He knew we could play football. He knew we'd eventually be okay on the field, but I think he wanted to draft a bunch of leaders, a bunch of guys that could kind of affect the locker room, affect young guys. And, ultimately all of our careers at the end came down to possibly going to other teams because the leadership value, the experience that we had. I went to Baltimore. Ozzie Newsome called me from the Ravens, the team I played for my last year in the draft, and said, I need you to come in the room and I need you to affect these young guys and teach them how to be pros. DeMarcus Ware went to Denver and taught Von Miller how to be a pro. Chris Canty went to the Giants and groomed and ushered, and then ended up in Baltimore in the same D-line room with me, ushering and grooming young players. So it was the foresight that those guys had when they drafted. I think they were trying to draft like good young men, and eventually we all had really good careers, was successful. And, the thing I'm most proud of, Jason, is everybody is still doing well today.
That's good.
So that's the blessing out of it, man. But we came along during a time together where it was like we all needed each other to deal with Bill Parcells.
Absolutely. We'll get back to our conversation with Marcus Spears from ESPN in just a second, but want to tell you some more about our friends at Water Mission, our sponsors today on Sports Spectrum, and they are working to stop the global spread of COVID-19 right now by providing urgently needed safe water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions to refugee settlements and other vulnerable communities. Think about the general water crisis statistics that I'm about to read to you. 2.1 billion people lack access to safe water. 4.4 billion people lack access to adequate sanitation, and both of those have been even more highlighted right now during COVID-19. So there is a global water crisis in existence, and Water Mission is working to stop it. They're fighting this global water crisis, and you can join them. Go to their website, watermission.org, watermission.org, to learn more, to pray with them, and fight the global water crisis. We're also presented today by Compassion International, and COVID-19 has left nearly 70,000 children without a sponsorship through Compassion. That's the capacity of an average NFL stadium. And as the world is in the grips of COVID-19, it's led to more sickness. Parents aren't working. Food is scarce. And the frontline church that Compassion partners with around the world is courageously delivering essential items to desperate children and families, in many cases, door to door. So what Compassion has done has been awesome. They teamed up with some of their pro athlete friends to respond to this challenge. 70,000 children without a sponsorship. And with your help, they're hoping to fill the stadium with urgent support for a stadium's worth of children in crisis. You can go to the website, compassion.com/teamup, compassion.com/teamup, and it's a dire state for these children. And right now is the time to act. It really is. You can go to compassion.com/teamup and donate to help these children through the next critical 12 months. Compassion.com/teamup. Now back to our conversation with the big swagoo, Marcus Spears, here on Sports Spectrum. I want to intersect the conversation with faith. We haven't really gone on that route yet, and this show is obviously the intersection of sports and faith. Can you share with us a little bit about your faith journey, your walk with the Lord, and kind of when that took shape for you?
Well, I'm a Black Southern young man that was in church every time the doors opened. My mom sung in the choir. She played the piano. I sung in the choir. My sister sung in the choir. We got our ears pinched and butts whooped for acting bad in the pews, and learned about the Lord early in life. Initially you just going to church. You young and you want to see your friends, and y'all got Sunday school, and you looking forward to the dinners after church. And then you have that part where you realize, you look around and you're like, wow, all these people shouting and jumping up and down and catching the Holy Ghost. And, you go for the theatrics, you go to laugh, and you go to hear the music. So a lot of my church, a lot of my faith early was going to church because I liked the music. I wanted to hear gospel music. I wanted to hear the singers. And that was my highlight of going to church, not even really listening to the sermon. Being young and just being entertained, just being like, I want to go see what's going to happen Sunday. Yeah. Not I want to go to church to hear about God and the Lord. And that wasn't why I was going to church young. And then got older and started to like listen. And I was like, man, there's something to this. It's something that I actually need to hear. It's something that I actually need to digest and understand and dig into. And it happened right there at Mount Carmel Baptist Church in Baton Rouge. Got baptized. When I understood what the Lord was and being born again. But my faith journey started, man, at 5 or 6 years old, going to church with my mom. To be honest with you, and whether it was the choir or whether it was the pianist, whether it was the organ, whether it was the individual vocal, the soloist, music brought me to it every Sunday. And then I just started learning, and I started seeing how my life, as I continued to grow and get older, how my life was being orchestrated without my doing. And I'm like, well, it's got to be something or somebody ordering my steps. And that was one of the songs, Order My Steps in Your Word, Dear Lord. That was one of the songs I heard so many times. So I relate a lot of my life to that song. And that was kind of how I related to not being in certain places, but being mentioned to do things. My high school coach put me in a car to take me to a football camp. And that's when I got on the radar to be like all of the stuff. Initially, the foundation and my rock has always been the Lord Jesus Christ. And he's put so many people in my life to get me to the point, even today, to get me to the point where I am, that there is no way I can take credit. Yeah. So it's just been ordered from day one. And my faith walk started early, but my faith understanding really didn't start until I was probably 18, 19 years old.
So walk me through past LSU into the NFL and kind of being a believer in a very high stress, high profile situation, right? And how you carry yourself and staying grounded. What was that like? Because there's a tension there with a lot of guys that we talk to on the show. Yeah. You have the push pull of the world and approval and all of that.
Jay, I was in the club, bro.
Yeah.
I was in the club. I was in the club. I talked to women. Like it was, I'm no, don't look at me thinking that you got a clean cut from 6 to 37 where I am now. Don't have that idea in your mind.
Sure.
And the pull of the fame and the money and the ability to do whatever you want to do, being young and trying to process, having all of this access and deciding to partake or to let that go. And I still say to this day, like I met my wife now, we met in college and we went through it. I mean, we went through it. I was a man. Like I cheated, I did dumb stuff, and was able to always go back to the rock. Like the foundation never left for me. And I firmly believe that the reason I wasn't like out crazy is because I always knew from day one that, my mom hear her voice. Boy, you better act like you got some sense. My daddy, you could build a reputation for 18 years and in 30 seconds it's over. So all of that stuff was always in the back of my mind. But I was always the guy at the club to be like, hey man, let's get out of here. The first sign of trouble. And then I kind of got away from that earlier than most of my peers because it never I had a great time, but it never was me. It never felt like a natural party animal. Let's go, let's do it. It was fun. I enjoyed it. But my faith, man, always was like, in the back of my mind, it was always like, I want the family, I want the wife, I want the kids, I want to raise them in church. I want my family to be deeply rooted in the belief in God, because that's what's going to sustain. That's always like, and I probably inherited because I grew up in church, but it was always that. But I don't want anybody to ever think, when it comes to Marcus Spears or the Big Swagoo, that I did not have that timeline in my life where it was like, you need to figure something out because what you're doing ain't it. And I think I resonate with a lot of guys because I can say that. I don't have this. There has never been a fake thing to me. I'm gonna give it to you real. Hey man, this is what I've been through. This is what I've done. These are the things that has happened to me. This is how I responded. And people around me had to get comfortable with that. I liken it a lot to TV. Like, people around me they got to know that I'm going to probably say some stuff that is going to seem crazy or outlandish, but that's me. I respond to things based on my experience and based on how I read them. And I'm never trying to give you great vernacular. I'm never trying to be this buttoned up, super poignant guy that's going to, get, pull in some kind of big corporate words or whatever. That's just not me. I'm a dude. But I'm a dude that know where my help comes from. And I've always known that. And I think that's what has kept me grounded, and also kept me out of situations that I could have easily been in growing up and being young.
That's great. Last couple questions here with Marcus Spears on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Let me ask you about 2020 and what this year has been like. There's so much that we could talk about. We could spend a whole another hour talking about everything, and we're not even, we still got 4 or 5 months left in this crazy 2020 year. But just an overall assessment on what this year has been like for you, how you've kind of how you're reading it. Certainly there's the race relations. Certainly there's everything with George Floyd and the terrible murder there. And there's obviously a pandemic, and just life in general has been different. What's it been like for you?
Crazy, man. So going back to what we previously talked about, faith. A lot of it, and to be honest with you, like, Jay, in these moments, people say, well, my faith is being tested. And I'm sure people feel that way. I think I like to say my faith is being reaffirmed. The unknowns, the uncontrollable. We can't control the pandemic. So what is the foundation? What are you grounded in? How do you see and approach the things that are actually happening right real time in your face, transpiring around you? People losing jobs, people dying, people in states of minds that they never thought that they were in, but because you took a job away or you took a distraction away, now they got to deal with a lot of these things that are going on in their life that they kind of could brush to the wayside. Where is your marriage? Now you in the house with your wife. Are you really married, or have you just been two ships passing in the night? So all of these things are things that my wife and I have talked about. And I think this pandemic, to be honest with you, is exposing a lot of empty calories in people's lives. It's exposing how much you depend on your status, your group, how much you like, where is the thing that will never move that sustains you, right? You and I, we believe in God. We have faith. So we know we can go to the rock all the time. A lot of people realize that maybe I don't believe how I think I believe, or maybe I believe when it was convenient. I think that's what 2020 has been. 2020 has been a year of taking stock in your individual self, taking stock in your family dynamic. Are you really doing the job you love, or are you really like just going somewhere every day and slowly dying and not really feeling fulfillment? So for me personally, 2020 has been a lot of self-reflection. It's been a lot of pain. with having to answer questions about George Floyd to my son. It's been a lot of reality. But it's also been a lot of blessings, man. And really getting back in touch. We getting back in, hopefully, people that's paying attention, we getting back in touch with being humans. Yeah. Like, we getting back in touch with being like the human side, not being the robotic, wake up in the morning, get your coffee, go to work, come home, talk to the kids for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, talk to the wife, y'all go to sleep, you wake up and repeat. That kind of takes, that puts us in robotic mode. That gives us it enables us not to deal with things that possibly are happening right in front of our face. But because we have all of these things going on, we can just move around them and keep shifting them. And, I'm going to put that off. So for me, that's what 2020 has been. When I watched George Floyd be murdered by that police officer, it reminded me of why I have these interpersonal feelings about this country, about race relations, about how I thought about the police when I was growing up, the talks that my parents had to have with me, the talks I have to have with my son, but also the birth of seeing this nation with whites, blacks, Jewish, transgender, all taken to the streets and protesting for right, not left and right, not black and white, not what race, religion, what sexual orientation or preference, right. Yeah. So it's been all of those things, which to me, Jay, is life always anyway, right? Yeah. The consistent basis of learning, but also like, you need to pay attention to the things that are happening right in front of your face. So it's been heartbreaking, man, to see people losing jobs and see people not having the ability to take care of their families from a financial standpoint, and trying to step foot in that and help as much as I possibly can. But also, man, very, 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 what's the word I'm looking for? It's been amazing to see the resilience of people and the community that exists beyond what we see negatively on the news and in media. It's still alive. Like, people still care about people. So with exposure to all of that, it defines what our country is.
No, that's true. That's very well said. Yeah, so man. I got to nerd out one last question. This will be it, and then I'll let you go. As a longtime Dallas Cowboys fan, I mean, I go back to the late 70s, early 80s with Roger Staubach and Danny White. Which team was the better team that you were on, the 07 team or the 2009 team? Because they were both really good. I think the 07 team was more dominant, maybe, where the 09 team kind of found. 07, it's not even a question.
07, we should have won the Super Bowl.
Won the Super Bowl.
We should have won the Super Bowl. Like, we felt like we should have won the whole. We had a top 5 defense.
Yeah.
That's when Romo was in. Romo had one of his best years ever.
Yeah. In
2007. When you looked at us on paper, we played like the team you saw on paper. And that has always been that's always been my definition of the NFL. One bad 3-hour Sunday can stop you from living in history forever.
And that was the playoff game against the Giants, right?
That was the Giants, after beating them twice during the regular season.
Yeah.
And man, and they went on to win it. So that's even, double. But we felt like that year, 09 was wonderful. We beat Philly back to back, goose egged them at the end of the season, and then played them in the first playoff game and beat them. But 07 felt like it was the one. Yeah. And we just couldn't close the deal, because, that's the thing too, Jason. You only get a few of those teams.
Right.
When you
That's
play,
why I ask. Yeah.
Like, when you play a 10-year career, we don't think about the anomaly in New England. But when you somewhere for 5 to 10 years, and you get a chance twice or three times to legitimately feel like you can win it all, that's a lot in the NFL, right? Like those percentages of feeling like you can get it done is a lot. In 2007, man, we were sick. We felt like that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, as a fan, I felt the same way. Like I just thought if they beat the Giants, they're going to beat Green Bay at home, and they're going to go to the Super Bowl against New England. That's what I felt. Yeah,
that was it, man. So, that was it.
Well, Jay, I'm sorry to bring up. I'm sorry to bring up these bad memories, but as a fan, we think about them a lot too. I'm sure you know that.
No doubt.
Thank you, my brother, for the time. Marcus Spears, the big swagoo. We'll be watching you on NFL Live on ESPN throughout the NFL season. You're a gentleman, my friend. Thank you so much for being on the show.
JR, thanks, man. Anytime, brother, and glad we got this done. And I'm always here if you need me, man.
And many thanks to Marcus Spears for joining us here today on Sports Spectrum. He's awesome. The big swagoo himself, ESPN NFL analyst. You can watch him on NFL Live weekdays on ESPN. The former Dallas Cowboys defensive lineman. I'm going to be honest with you here. I really could have spent 30 minutes just talking about the Dallas Cowboys because I'm kind of a nerd, a big Dallas Cowboys fan. And whenever I can talk to a former player, and we've had a couple of those on recently on the podcast, I kind of nerd out and I get excited. And Marcus played during a really fun time for me to watch the Dallas Cowboys, although they didn't live up to the expectations. That was a really good team in those 2006, 2007, 2009 seasons with the Cowboys. Tony Romo coming in to play quarterback, and you got guys like Spears and DeMarcus Ware. So I tried not to nerd out too much with Marcus Spears, but of course the fan in me comes out. But I really appreciate him. He was great. Loved his heart for the Lord. Love that he talks about the foundation that he stands on. The rock that he stands on is Christ. Really good stuff there from Marcus Spears. And I hope to get him back on again. And we can talk a lot more, maybe Cowboys, a lot more about faith and his journey. He was great. Marcus Spears, thank you, sir, for joining us here today on Sports Spectrum. You can give him a follow on Twitter. That's where he's most active. He's also on Instagram as well. Just search Marcus Spears, and you'll find him there. Many thanks to Marcus. We also want to thank our sponsors, Water Mission and Compassion. You can check out Water Mission fighting the global water crisis at watermission.org, and Compassion International. We love them. They are trusted for a reason, and a child development ministry that does great work. You can check them out at compassion.com/teamup. We also want to direct you to our website, sportspectrum.com. That's the home base for all of our content. We got articles, devotionals, podcasts, all sorts of great content can be found over at the website, sportspectrum.com. And then lastly, whatever app that you're listening to this podcast on, do us a favor and click that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode of this show with interviews like this one with Marcus Spears. Click that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Sports Spectrum podcast. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Jason. I love you guys. We'll see you next time right here on the podcast. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.